Hello, everybody. Got my mic. Hello, everybody, to the Culture Clash right here on the Pryce Podcast. And before we get started, go ahead, go to prycemedia.com. That is PRYCE media.com. Go on there, you'll be able to see the entire list of all of our channels on Pryce about the Pryce Podcast and Boy Basic gaming channels. Go on there, check out the information, help support the channel, and yeah, with that, let's get into it. So today, we're going to war, right? Not with bullets, but with truth. Now, the last 2 weeks, if I remember correctly, we went and talked about socialism. We talked about communism. Today, we are talking about Marxism. All right. And why? It's terrible, really. Why it's just terrible. Yeah, completely terrible. So, for the next hour, we are no breaks, no distractions. We are just dismantling the most destructive, blood-soaked ideology in human history. And like I said, Marxism, the rotten core of communism. Now, this isn't some abstract academic debate, okay? It's just 100% truth. Marxism isn't a noble idea that has ever been tried right. That's the biggest cop-out in modern intellectual history. A great out-of-reality card, if you like to say it. Just, you're not even in reality at this point. Yeah. Anywho, out of reality card that defenders trout out every single time the bodies pile up. They claim that the Soviet Union wasn't real Marxism. Mao's China wasn't real Marxism. Pol Pot's killing fields weren't real Marxism. And today's collapsing Venezuela or Cuba, although I will say Venezuela kind of has been saved because, Trump. But besides the point, Cuba, we still got to go after. Anywho, they all say that none of these countries, none of these time periods, none of these leaders leading these countries really did Marxism. Complete and utter BS. I'll just tell you that right now. It's just BS all around. Right? So, according to them, true communism. Don't know what true communism is, rather than what we have already seen. Has never been implemented because it's a perfect, stateless, classic utopia where everyone voluntarily shares and harmony reigns. Yeah, that does logically that does not make sense whatsoever. If you actually just think about it, just knowing just a bare minimum of Marxism and actually using your logical brain to actually go over what that foundation really is, it does not work whatsoever. None. Not a zip. No way. The fact that everybody voluntarily shares makes no sense. Now, the only way how I see it happening, only way, is through the family, the nuclear family. That's the only way how I see that's happening. It's a very, 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 very small group of people where that I could actually help out. But if we're talking about large, grand scale, government size, nation size type of implementation, doesn't work whatsoever. There is no way that any of that works. And Yeah, doesn't work. Only way it can work is through the family. Mostly because, they're all in one relationship and all, one thinking order. It doesn't work anywhere else. Sorry. But yeah, nah. Want to use it in the government level? No. Absolutely does not work whatsoever. But anyway, here's the brutal truth. They refuse to faith every single attempt to impose Marxist principles. The abolition of private property, which personally doesn't make sense. It's private. You know what? I'll save it for next week. We'll get into it next week. The dictatorship of the proletariat. Don't know what that means, but yeah. Central planning of the entire economy. The war on the family and faith. Yo, okay. So, just on that one, right? War on the family and faith. I am a diehard Christian. 100% devout, genuine Christian. I'll tell you that right now. You are not going to tell me that my God does not exist and that the God is government. That's some complete and utter, sorry for my language, bullshit. Sorry for my language. But that's just BS. 100%. Nobody is going to tell me that the government is God. Because if you tell me that, you have to explain how the government created the entire universe. And if you can't, what do you want? Like, whatever weed you are smoking has to be good. Has to be there. I don't see any other way how that's even possible. But has ended in tyranny, starvation, and slaughter. Marxism, all of that. Marxism, socialism, communism, all ended in tyranny, starvation, and slaughter. And you cannot tell me otherwise. Or else you are playing the out of reality card, ignoring the facts and wanting to do stuff your way, whatever BS that might be. Who knows? Now, not because the wrong person were in charge, not because of external sabotage or bad luck, but because the ideology itself is rotten at its core. It is built it is built on a fundamental denial of human nature. The reality that individuals respond to incentives, that self-interest drives innovation and productivity. You're trying to tell me that you're trying to end all of that for what? Some BS? That that no, this does not make sense. Sorry, no, does not make sense. Honestly, I'm not sorry. Does not make sense. That power concentrated in the hands of a self-appointed vanguard inevitably corrupts absolutely. Marx and Engels didn't just miscalculate, they designed a system that requires crushing human freedom to function, and then promised that freedom would magically appear once the crushing was complete. It's a bait and switch that has fooled generations. Fooled! There is no way that, just there's no possible way. No possible way. It has fooled so many people. This isn't just theory gone wrong. It's a murderous cult that has killed over 100 million people. more than all the wars of the 20th century combined. Okay? That number comes from decades of documented research, from the engineered famines and purges of the USSR to Mao's Great Leap Forward that wiped out tens of millions, to the systematic extermination in Cambodia and beyond. And all references will be in the description after everything that's going on. Thank you, brother. Really enjoying these politics streams. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Ooh. Now, like I said, all sources, I will have them all in the description after the videos. Go on Rumble, Pryce Podcast, YouTube, Pryce Podcast, where you guys can see all of this entire video again. There will be sending out clips later on as well. So enjoy that. Go to Pryce Podcast on TikTok as well. Anywho, these unfortunate side effects, or these weren't unfortunate side effects, they were predictable. Logical outcomes of treating people as raw material for social engineering, disposable when they resisted the grand plan. Don't know how that makes sense whatsoever. Marxism promises utopia and delivers mass graves, gulags, famines, secret police, and total control over every aspect of life. It clashes violently with everything that makes human culture actually thrive. Individual liberty that sparks creativity, the family and foundational units of society. Faith that gives people meaning beyond the states. Innovation born from competition and reward. Private property that secures dignity and independence and basic human nature itself. Our drive to build, to own, to improve our lot and pass something better to our children. Marxism doesn't come close. It is complete and utter rubbish. You know, if you're tired of college kids romanticizing Che Guevara on their t-shirts, a man who ran execution squads and bragged about it, professors calling for equity while ignoring the body count, or politicians sliding democratic socialism like Zoran Mamdani and or AOC or Bernie Sanders or any one of them degenerate people into every policy, as if adding the word democratic magically erases the history of breadlines and torture chambers. Then stay with me, okay? Stay with me. We're going to be exploring the lies, the body count, the economic suicide, and the stealth invasion of Marxism. Really, they're thinking into our own backyard. From critical theory in the classroom to identity-based division in the boardroom. This is the culture clash, and Marxism is the ultimate destroyer of culture. It doesn't just fail economically, it annihilates the human spirit, turns neighbor against neighbor, and leaves entire nations as hollow shells of what they could have been. Let's tear it apart, piece by poisonous piece. Now, let's start at the root. Okay, let's start at the root. The diseased ideology itself. Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels didn't invest some brilliant new system. They weaponized envy and resentment into a pseudo-scientific religion. They weren't visionary thinkers, uncovering hidden truths about society. Marx was a failed academic, a chronic debater who lived off handouts from Engels. The son of a wealthy factory owner, ironically benefiting from the very capitalism he sought to destroy. And that's another thing where all these other socialists, the democratic socialists, or anybody really who spout this BS saying that we need to go from capitalism to this, to capitalism from to socialism, capitalism to communism, capitalism to Marxism. They all are benefiting from the capitalist system. Like Hassan Piker, for example. They all see everything that's going on. They benefit from capitalism. Benefit. Yeah. Yeah. That's all I can say. That's all I can say. Yeah. Anywho. Together they crafted the Communist Manifesto in 1848. A short, fiery pamphlet that reads more like a declaration of war than serious analysis. In it, they openly called for the abolition of private property, the family, and even religion, which Marx dismissed as the opium of the people, a drug to keep the masses docile, while the elites, ironically including himself, that's another thing you guys aren't getting, really. This man Marx was an elite himself, and he's basically ridiculing himself to try to prop himself up as somebody who is for the people. Yeah, right. And how the Communist Manifesto plotted the takeover of the people. Their entire worldview rested on class struggle. And it's wild. We see this a lot today. I don't know. What do you call it? Oh, I know. Liberalism. All these liberals, all they care about is race and class, which is complete and utter BS because they don't want to apply themselves to get themselves set up for something better. Yeah, that's what we're dealing with. The idea that all of human history is nothing but a brutal zero-sum battle between oppressors and oppressed. Bourdieu's versus proletariat. I said it earlier better. Capital versus labor. No room for nuance, no acknowledgement of cooperation, trade, or mutual benefit. The only solution? Total violent revolution to seize the means of production and smash the existing order. Please tell me how any of that is supposed to make the human society thrive. Because I don't see it whatsoever. But here's the first fatal flaw. And it's fatal because it dooms the entire project from the drawing board. Okay, you can see it from the drawing board right there, like just like that board right there. How, yeah. Hold up, give me 1 second. Try to fix this. Sorry, cables. Am I right? They want me to not do this. Even my own cables that I own as private property trying to stop me because they know what I'm talking about is complete BS, or the topic I'm talking about at least. But anyway, Marx completely misunderstood human nature. He viewed people as blank slates, malleable clay that could be reshaped by the right economic conditions. Lies. once human nature, how do you don't change human nature just like that. It's not a blank slate. If you want to change human nature, you literally have to go to the very root and foundation and destroy it. And you can't, because it's human nature. It is naturally within us. Marx did not understand that whatsoever. None. No. Not one whatsoever. Once the Borgias, if I'm saying that right, was eliminated and private property abolished, he believed altruism would bloom and everyone will be happily labor for the collective good. Yeah, BS. That is complete BS, because by human nature, you want to take care of your own people, which is your family. Like for me, I want to make sure my family's good. Don't matter. My family comes first before that random stranger I don't know anything about. Then next to the people that I actually know. The people that I don't know, I care the very least of. If we have a chart, the people that I do not know, I don't really care about. And you know, it's not really a fun thing to say, but it is what it is. That's how it is. I mean, you don't have to like it if you don't want to, but sorry. Not really. Anywho. What other nonsense? We already talked about that. He ignores incentives. He ignored ambition. He ignored the fundamental truth that human beings are not selfless ants in a hill. We are individuals with dreams, families to provide for, just like I said, a natural desire to improve our own circumstances and those of our children for our families. And he doesn't understand that. I don't see how you don't. Like, what? He ignored the fact that without private property and the possibility of profit, no one has any real reason to innovate, to take risks, to work harder than the bare minimum, or even to show up consistently. Why invent a better plow if you can't keep the extra harvest? I mean, come on. Why build a factory if the state can seize it tomorrow? Why stay late at the office when your reward is the same stale bread ration as the guy who barely even tries? And a little bit about that. That's one thing that I don't get I don't understand this whatsoever. If your reward is the exact same thing as the guy who didn't put in any work, and so like you work hard, and okay, let's take this scenario. There's two people, right? One works hard, he's out there doing everything, going hard, doing extra stuff. There's one barely does anything. So like hard worker doesn't do nothing. But the reward is the same. How does that make sense? That tells the person who's working hard is be like, oh, if we're gonna get the same thing, why should I work hard? I'm not gonna do anything and still get the same results. So now they're both bottom feeders, and yeah, it destroys the fundamental human nature of doing better, really. But yeah, who knows? I mean, I'm just a guy talking in a mic about Marxism. What do I know, right? Yeah, anywho. Man, I gotta stop slamming this desk. The results, a system that treats individuals as interchangeable cogs in the state machine, stripped from dignity, stripped of purpose, reduced to servants of the collective. This isn't liberation, it's dehumanization dressed up as progress. Marx also promised the state would wither away after the revolution once the class of society emerged. I want to say a word, but I'm restraining myself. But I will say complete another BS. Yeah, the state does not wither away. I don't. How does a state wither away? I. It doesn't. Honestly, that was the biggest and most dishonest lie of all. A fairy tale to sell to snake oil. Who knows? He could have been the snake, the serpent himself. At this point, every single time Marxism has been tried, the state didn't wither. It metasized into a totalitarian nightmare that controlled every aspect of life. What you could say, where you could move to, what you could think, even what you could grow in your own garden. This wasn't a mistake or an unfortunate deviation. It wasn't. This was the inevitable result of concentrating power, absolute power, in the hands of a vanguard party, a self appointed elite that claimed to speak for the people while murdering, imprisoning, or starving anyone who dared to disagree. Please tell me a country that's not like that right now. UK is getting there, unfortunately. Fortunately, UK is getting there. Power doesn't wither when you hand it to the ideologues. No, it doesn't. Who? What? How does that make sense? When they have power, doesn't go away. It gets transferred, but it doesn't go away. Okay? Does not go away. Ideologues who believe they alone possess the scientific truth about history. No, it corrupts, it expands, and it devours everything in its path, like a black hole. Yeah, I'm referencing it to a black hole. Doesn't matter what's in its way, it just sucks it up into oblivion, including the very workers it claimed to liberate. Come on. The deeper tragedy is that this wasn't just bad economics or flawed sociology. It was a spiritual sickness, a rejection of the Judeo Christian understanding of fallen human nature that requires checks on powers, and a replacement with utopian hubris that always ends in hell on earth. Always does, and it never. There is no utopia in Marxism or communism or socialism. There is no utopia whatsoever. That it is logically impossible for it to happen. So yeah, logically impossible. Now let's look at the historical record, the real world laboratory where the ideology was tested again and again, always with the same catastrophic result. Not in some isolated experiment, but across continents, cultures, decades, and leaders who all swore they were doing it the right way. This time. Spoiler alert, the results were identical because the poison was the formula itself. Okay. Let's start with the Soviet Union, the world's first full-scale Marxist state. Lenin seized power in 1917, promising bread, peace, and land to the peasants. That again does not make sense. How are you going to give land to the peasants when there's a finite amount of land? And honestly, there could be an infinite amount of humans. We just keep breeding them. The more humans that populate the land, the less land there is to share. So that means every single time there's going to be portions, the land that would be divvied up even smaller among the people. It doesn't work. Nobody wants to go lower than what they have always gone. Nobody. Which, honestly, you know what? I'm going to just do a little segue away. Okay? Okay. Just stay with me here. Think about this. Nobody wants to go lower than anywhere they've ever gone. That's why, a lot of people have ambitions. I recently saw, what was it? Yesterday's? I think it was it was yesterday. Timcast IRL. Or was it the day before? Or was it the day before? I don't remember which day it was. Probably yesterday or the day before. Anywho, watching Timcast IRL, Tim Pool on there saying the way he was able to travel a lot, he literally slept on a friend's couch for a couple $100 and saved up his money to go travel and go to all these different places and become an independent journalist, basically. Now, and I remember now this. You guys have to go to Timcast IRL, get the full story yourself, where he explained it all. I think you might need Rumble Premium, so don't forget, get on Rumble Premium. That thing's awesome. Okay, completely awesome. If we go past an hour here, I will be on Rumble. YouTube will be shut down. YouTube and Twitch will be shut down, and we will continue on Rumble if we go past an hour. Probably will. Anywho, Tim Pool was basically just saying, he did all that, telling other people, hey, if you want to do that, then just do what I did. They weren't willing to downscale and do what he did. And, now look where he's at. Anywho, people don't want to go lower than what they've always been. But sometimes you have to take the hit to dish it out next time. Or dish out 5 times as much the next time, right? But anyway, about people don't want to go lower than where they've always been. That's why social programs are terrible. Because when people hit that rock bottom, nowhere to go, now they're relying on the government to help them. They're relying on them. You can't. I mean, once you start relying on them, now you don't want to get off of it, really. Right. That's why, for me, I think there should be a policy. Nobody should be on social programs for any more than 6 months. Really and truly, no more than 6 months. If you get down, okay, will help. Government should help you out right then and there. But they should help you out to help you get out of it. Because honestly, after 6 months, if you're still where you're at originally, come on now. Especially with somebody else's help, come on now. It's time to go. Anyway, back to what we were saying. Lenin seized power in 1917, promising bread, peace, and land to the peasants. What do people actually get? Something called the Red Terror, a deliberate campaign of mass executions, torture, and hostage-taking run by the Cheka secret police. Tens of thousands shot in the first few years alone. Then came war communism, forced gain requisitions, nationalization of everything, and engineered famines that killed millions more during the Russian Civil War. By the time Stalin took over, the blueprint was set. His Holodomor in Ukraine alone killed between 3.5 to 7 million people in 1932 to 1933 in one single year. Deliberately starved because they resisted collectivization. Farmers who had worked the land for generations were labeled kulaks, class enemies, and liquidated. They took everything. Stalin's regime seized every last kernel of grain, every seasoned grain, while children died swollen bellies in the streets, and desperate mothers resorted to cannibalism. And there are people out there like Hassan Piker, like Zoran Mamdani, like AOC, like Bernie Sanders that want to bring this back. Yeah, no, not happening. If I have anything to say about that. Stalin himself said the liquidation of the kulaks was necessary to break the back of resistance. That is Marxism in action. When reality doesn't match the theory, murder the reality. Now we move east to Mao's China, the great leap forward. Mao's insane ideology, driven attempt by instant industrialization and collectivization, caused the single largest famine in recorded history. Estimates from historians like Frank Decoder, using Eternal Chinese Archives, put the death toll at around 45 million between 1958 and 1962 in just 6 years, more than the Holocaust. 45 million. And you guys want to bring this back? Why? Backyard steel fences that produced worthless slag while peasants melted down their tools and pots. The Four Pest campaign killed millions of sparrows, triggering ecological collapse and locust swarms that devoured crops. Communes were ordered to report fantasy harvest numbers. Yeah, complete and utter lies. The state took the grain away. People ate bark, dirt, leather, and in documented cases across provinces, their own children. I don't see how. Why do you want to go back to this? That makes absolutely no sense. Yeah. Then came the Cultural Revolution. Mao's purge of counter-revolutionaries, another 1 to 2 million slaughtered, tens of millions more tortured in public struggle sessions, families destroyed, temples razed, books burned, and an entire generation's culture erased. Teachers beaten to death by their students, doctors executed for being, you know the word, bigorious. I can't say anything, bro. This is really pissed me off. All because Mao feared losing power and needed perpetual revolution to keep the ideology pure. Yeah, no. Doesn't make sense. Does not make sense whatsoever. Cambodia, under Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge, took even further into pure evil. In just 4 years, 1975 to 1979, they killed between 1.5 and 2 million people. Roughly 20 to 25% of the entire population. Now you could say, there's a lot more deaths in China with 45 million. Yes, but they have a much bigger landmass, much bigger population. There's probably like a billion or more people just living in China. That's a very small percentage. But we go to Cambodia. Yeah, 1.5 to 2 million, but that's 1/5 to a quarter of the entire population. How does that make sense? The empty cities at gunpoint marched millions into the countryside and turned the country into a giant death cap called Democratic Kampuchea. Why do people think putting the word Democrat in front of something makes it better. They executed anyone who wore glasses because that meant you could read and might think. Yeah. But I don't wear glasses at all. So I can't read or think. Mm, mm. Anyone with soft hands, women, because sorry, anyone with soft hands, which most likely are women, especially from back then, maybe. I don't know. But, men do have rougher hands in general. Anyone who spoke a foreign language, luckily, I only speak one language, so yeah. And it's America it's English in America, which everybody should know how to speak English if you're going to live in America. But that's a whole different topic. We'll get into that later on. When? I don't know. Maybe the week after next. Gotta finish up this economic section of the culture clash. Anywho, even people who cried at executions. If you saw an execution, you cried, then you get executed. Yep, makes total sense. Children were recruited as executioners because they were uncontaminated. All in the name of year zero, wiping the slate clean for pure communism. No money, no markets, no families, no past. Just a party and the killing fields. That doesn't make sense. Cuba under Castro. North Korea under the Kims. East Europe behind the Iron Curtain. Ethiopia under Mejitu's Red Terror. The pattern is identical. Execution quotas, famines used as weapons, secret police everywhere. Venezuela is the most recent case study, a country sitting on the world's largest proven oil reserves, once the richest in Latin America, and thank God Trump took it back. Took out Maduro. Honestly, I don't know what's going on with that man. But he gone. Venezuela has been taken over. We got the oil. But we'll talk a little bit more about that Saturday at 2 p.m. on the Chaos This Week. We will be talking about the Iran war. There's a lot of stuff happening between Israel and obviously us, or Israel, Lebanon, us, Iran, obviously. We'll be talking about that a little bit more in depth. And then Virginia. Virginia's redistricting, trying to be smart, got failed within less than 24 hours of apparently getting yeses. Virginia, what's going on? Anywho. Ooh. Under Chavez, then Maduro's 21st century socialism, GDP collapsed by more than 70%. Hyperinflation exploded to over 130,000% at its peak. And millions fled on foot. Millions. People ate zoo animals, stray dogs, and garbage while party elites lived like kings in fortified compounds. Hospitals ran out of medicine. Blackouts lasted days. Once prosperous cities, that's the word. Once prosperous cities, became war zones. This wasn't bad luck. This wasn't sanctions or external interference. No, none whatsoever. This was Marxism doing exactly what it was always been given the chance. Destroy incentives, push productivity, concentrate power and abundance into mass suffering. Every single one of these horrors was sold as the march toward utopia. Every single time. The defenders later said that wasn't real Marxism? Please tell me what is that. But the body count, the gulags, the famines, and the secret place were not bugs. They were inevitable features of a system that treats human beings as expendable raw material for the collective dream. The historical record isn't debatable. It's not. It is a mountain of corpses proving the ideology is incapable with human life. If you can't debate. Yeah, you're a lie. Cannot debate. Marxism is trash. Complete and utter trash. I'll read the chats later on. Actually, let's go ahead and read this one. Marxism has by who is this? Don Homer 57. Marxism has never really been an influential ideology. The harmful and totalitarian socialism has always been utopian and idealist socialism that Marx criticized. No. Just no. No. Communism, socialism, Marxism. They're all basically the same thing, just different names, really. People say they haven't been tried right. Yeah, no, there is no right way to practice any of these systems. Marxism, socialism, communism all lead to death. Every single one. So, yeah, man. Don't know what you're talking about. Anywho, economically, Marxism is impossible on its face. Not efficient. Not needs better management. Not bad luck with the leaders. Literally impossible. Ludwig von Mises proved it in a century in his groundbreaking 1920 essay, Economic Calculation in the Socialist Commonwealth. Here's the core problem. Stripped bare. Without private property and genuine free market prices, there is no rational way to allocate scarce resources across an entire economy. Thomas Sewell said it perfectly. Where's that book? Basic Economics by Thomas Sewell. This is a great book. Highly recommend you guys read it. It says it in the very first chapter, like first 50 pages. It goes into great detail about why communism is not good. It's not good. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then you obviously haven't read Marx, LOL. He extensively criticized utopian socialists, even in the Communist Manifesto, which is like under 30 pages. Yeah, bro. Look, I don't care what he criticized. All he did was he changed the name. All he did. He only changed the name to Marxism. All he did. Anywho. But yeah. How do you allocate very scarce resources across an entire country? It can't happen in central planning. There is no way you could take the US. There is no way DC is going to be able to come up with ways of how scarce resources will be able to be implemented, how much needed to be paid, how many resources need to go to other different places. No, there's absolutely no way any of that could happen. In a capitalist system, prices emerge from millions of voluntary exchanges. That is how we get close to utopia, basically. That is get close to it. I would say we get close to it. It's not 100. It's not perfect. I'll tell you that right now. Capitalism is not perfect, but based off of the other options, it's definitely the best option we have. It has helped many people go from poverty to riches. I mean, yeah, they signal relative scarcity, consumer preferences, and opportunity costs in real time, something that central government cannot do whatsoever. A factory owner could look at the price of steel, labor, electricity, and machinery and calculate whether turning those inputs into cars, tractors, or smartphones creates more value than the alternatives. Entrepreneurs risk their own capital, respond to profit and loss, and constantly adjust. That's how innovation explodes and resources flow to where they're most needed. Under Marxism, central planners issue decrees from the top. They have no private ownership of the means of production, so no real markets prices for capital goods. They don't know how much stuff costs, where stuff needs to go, how much stuff needs to go there, where. It doesn't happen under Marxism or socialism or communism. Anywho, they can count physical units, tons of steel, hours of labor, but they have zero idea what anything is actually worth or what people truly need or want at any given moment. It might work out in the beginning, but during the long term, I will give it 1 week before things arise. And that's the most generous I will ever give it. And I don't see, honestly, within 3 days, they'll have problems. They will have problems. Give it a week, it's a total meltdown. Nothing's going to happen. Or I will say, it's going to be bad. It is going to be bad. We mean there is no debate to that. It is going to be bad. Like I said, they have zero idea of what anything is actually worth, or what people truly need, or want at any given moment. Should this steel go to tractors or tanks? To housing or railways? How do you compare the value of a new bridge versus better shoes or medicine? Because all those options are great. Medicine, obviously, given, you're going to need medicine to survive and stuff. So maybe that has more value, but what about shoes so that people don't walk in the snow bare feet, especially in Russia? It gets cold out there. And it does snow a lot. I've seen a lot of videos. Or a bridge where you could actually transport all those necessary products. How do you know the true worth if you're not in the trenches, put it in the work? Yeah. Without price signals reflecting subjective human valuations, planners are flying blind. And I mean blind. They don't know where they're going. They guess. They prioritize ideology over reality, and the result is chronic shortages of everything people actually desire. Mass surpluses of useless junk, black markets everywhere, and a waste on civilization ending scale. Mises nailed it. Socialism doesn't just procure or produce less, it cannot perform economic calculations at all. It's not an economy in the true sense. It's command and control pretending to be one. Frederick Hayek later expanded on this, showing how dispersed knowledge, the unique local information held by millions of individuals, can never be centralized in a planning board. The Soviet Union tried 5 year plans for decades. They built factories, moved mountains, and still couldn't put decent shoes or toilet paper on shelves consistently. Capitalism, by contrast, turned self-interest into the greatest engine of human prosperity ever devised. It channels greed, ambition, and the desire to provide for one's family into serving others through voluntary exchange. Look at the start. Natural experiments that prove it beyond debate. It cannot be debated. Don Homer 57. The change from utopian socialism is Marxism was to decentralize the subject as a moral agent. So trying look, dude, you are trying to defend a failed system. Socialism to Marxism is the exact same thing. How people think through terror makes no sense in a Marxist framework. Yeah, because they'll get shot and dead. For Marx, people are non-communists because their material conditions are non-communists, whereas utopian socialists think they need to force people to think right to usher in common. Dude, I don't know if you've listened. What? Look, man, socialism, communism, and Marxism are all the same. They're literally just different words. Different words. They all basically mean the same. Sure, you could say that they differ between one another, but essentially down to the foundation, they all mean the same. All of it. They force people to think right. Yes, they do. Marxism does the same. Communism doesn't. Socialism does it. Capitalism is the only system that doesn't force people to think right. Anywho, we are hitting close to the 1 hour mark. So, for all you who still want to see this, go to rumble.com. Search in the Pryce Podcast, and I will catch you guys there. Well, that being said, don't forget, like the video, share if this is share this show if you're new, subscribe if you're new, share this with everybody that you know, and go to prycemedia.com. That is PRYCE media.com. You'll be able to know who I am, figure out why I'm even here doing all this. Look at all the channels, look at the podcast, look at the gaming channels. I will have a Discord up soon, but yeah. You should read Marx. That's all I can say. You're just wrong about the facts. Yeah, no, I'm not. Anywho, go to Rumble. Get on Rumble. We about to get spicy and say stuff YouTube will ban me for. And probably Twitch too. So, yeah. With that, I will see you guys over on Rumble. Peace.